Preparing to go live, should pop up any minute. Turn the volume off on this. Okay, we are live. Share it. It is live on my page. Okay, let me pull this back up. Okay, hold on. I'm going to let everybody. Welcome everybody there on Facebook. Welcome to our new normal, the COVID-19 edition of Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. It's one of those interesting situations where you gotta let everybody else in your house know that you're doing a show, and please not come nowhere near the door right now. Keep that noise downstairs or outside. So if you hear noise in any of our houses, we're all home.
Yes. So, I did that before we came on.
Okay, yeah. I've had, we got as a 4-year-old in the house. Sometimes she'll just, closed doors don't matter to her. She just walks in, waves on the camera, and then walks back out. So you may see that.
I don't have kids. I don't have kids yet, but I got 3 dogs, and they'll be making appearances.
Oh, yeah. One of them came.
I think it's fully human of us. It's good.
Yeah, one of them came in and tried to take over the last show. All in the face. Yeah. So we have a big show for y'all today. Our first guest today is New York 17th District Congressional candidate Allison Fine. As you all know, I've been doing as many of the interviews in this election. There were at one point 10 or 12 candidates, and now it's down to, I believe, 7.
That's right.
And I've interviewed, you're the 5th one I'm interviewing, and I think we're doing David Buchwald next week. Only person I haven't talked to is David Colucci, and his people didn't contact me, so I'm not gonna.
You don't need him.
But you've seen Mondier, Asha Castleberry Hernandez,
yes,
Catherine Parker, who now has stepped out, Evelyn Farkas. There was someone else, and
Adam Schleifer.
Adam, yes. Oh, sorry, Adam. And Adam, yes, Adam was last week. So that's what the first hour is going to be. We're going to interview her, and in the second hour, we're going to have on Nancy Cater Maldonado. Her son died at the hands of the Greenberg police in 2017, and today there was a rally in White Plains, Greenberg area, and we invited her because I think it's very important. We are protesting, and wow, what happened to George Floyd is egregious by every sense of whatever. It's also equally important that if we're going to protest and march and stand up for people over 1,200 miles away, we need to do that with the people here in Westchester.
Yeah.
The Kenneth Chamberlains, the Christopher Ridleys and the Jonathan Maldonados, just to name a few. So we're going to go on, and she's going to tell her story. And I'm not sure if I've actually seen her tell her story before, so it'll be the first time for me hearing it.
It'll be an exclusive, yeah.
Yeah, this will be definitely my first time. I will be meeting her today and hearing her story for the first time, like some of you. So with that said, real quick, couple of things. A couple of announcements. So in Mount Vernon, we have a school board and a library trustee election. I believe there are several school board elections throughout New York State that are this Tuesday, but in New York, they're not going. You can't vote at the voting place for this election. So everyone got mailed. Was supposed to get, every registered voter was supposed to get an absentee ballot. I didn't get mine till Friday, and I'm one of 5 voters in my house. The other 4 didn't get theirs till yesterday. So I don't know when they mail these out, and if we're just getting them, there's no way that if you put them in the mail tomorrow, they were going to get to the Board of Education. I guess that's where ours goes, to the Board of Education here in Mount Vernon. I guess that's where everybody else's goes, to their own Board of Education. But there was no way they was going to get there Tuesday by 5 o'clock. But I just, Brenda Crump, one of the trustees running and a friend of the show, she just sent out that the governor extended, they're allowed to accept the absentee ballots till the 16th. While that is an extension of a week, I urge everyone, when you get it, if you got it already, or when you get it, if you get it tomorrow or Tuesday, fill it out immediately and mail it. Or better yet, if you can, I know in Mount Vernon there's a drop box right there at the school board, at the Board of Education. That's where I dropped mine off at. I would do that. I wouldn't even trust the mail. But if you have to, it's a self-address. It comes in a self-addressed envelope. You don't have to pay for the postage, and you just give it to your mailman and drop it off at the mailbox. So I just want to urge everybody to do that, because I just learned that today. And for everybody listening to my voice, especially cities like Mount Vernon and Yonkers, last time I looked, they are so far the lowest in numbers of returning the census.
Oh, yes. I think the census needs to be extended, AJ. I think it's unrealistic to expect people to have filled it out this year.
Right. So but I mean, regardless, we're in a new normal. So
yeah,
that you have to make the adjustments. This show right now, this is us making the adjustments.
Yeah.
We had to push back several shows. Matter of fact, you were one of the ones we had to cancel because the studio closed just as we had you scheduled, like a week or two. You and Carol, you and Catherine Parker. Okay, I'm still getting messages from Michelle. Okay, so I advise everybody to take the time. It takes 30 seconds tops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a minute if you take your time and do it with your eyes closed. I mean, like, it literally is that easy, but it means the difference of, I believe, the government gives, and if anybody who's listening on Facebook, I'll pull up the audience so I can look at the comments. Anybody who's listening, please correct me, but I believe that the city that you live in, the municipality that you live in, gets $2,500 per person per year.
Yes.
Per person that fills out the census. So being that the census is not going to be filled out again for another 10 years, 2,500, what is that? 25,000, that's 25, was that 25,000 or 250,000? Times 10, 25,000. That's 25,000 that your city loses per person.
Per person. For
For
federal funding.
Right.
For things like housing and SNAP and a whole bunch of other social services that won't come to our communities if there's an undercount.
Right. So and again, Lorraine can tell you, Yonkers has been one of them. They've been under, when you get to, they've been just under the 200,000 mark.
Yeah.
And getting at 200,000 brings another level of, funding. So it's, you in Mount Vernon, let's put it this way. In the 1960 census, there was 70,000 people. In the last census, there was 68,000. Now, I find it hard to believe there were more people here in 1960 than there is now.
Yep.
A lot of people renting multifamily houses, and I believe we're closer to 100,000, and we're very grossly undercounted. And Mount Vernon, like Yonkers a little bit too, is a dumping ground where they bring all of those people that they don't want in other cities, but they don't furnish us with the resources to care for those people.
Yeah.
And so I have a couple of people agreeing with me.
Can I click on the census, AJ?
Oh yeah, I am correct about the school board. Is date stamped. It has to be stamped by the two. No, if you can bring it in, they can bring it only by June 9th. If mailed, it must be there by the 16th. That's what I said. It has to be there by the 16th. I will find a link because Brenda gave me a link earlier. I don't know if she's watching. I will put it in the comment section so everybody can read it. A couple of comments real quick. A couple of people: Luis Cherico, Lauren Reza, Big Puro Gonzalez said, my beautiful aunt Lorraine Lopez. Dawn C. Wright, Cheryl Blue Brownlee Fox. Oh, she shared the link. Click on that link that Cheryl shared. That's the story right there from the governor's thing. Luis Jericho, Warren Razor. Yes, I got all of it. And Jen Wang, how are you?
Hi, Jen.
And, yes. So I want to get all that in. Census real quick, and then we're going to get into our candidate.
All right. I did the census 10 years ago for the city of Yonkers, me in the Office of Planning and Development when I worked for Phil Amiconi. This year, I'm on Mayor Spano Census Count Committee. When we did it 10 years ago, we got up to 188 plus, barely under the 200,000 mark. Right now in the city of Yonkers, we're at 50% of the people that are filling it out. People need to understand that this is a time of COVID. We lost a lot of funding because of COVID. We're gonna be struggling to get back on track. And we really, really need this money. It's very, very important. So I do suggest that everyone fill out the census. You can fill it out online. You can fill out the mailer they sent you, or you can do it by phone.
Okay. And Allison or whoever is handling your social media, the show is broadcasting live on my page, and all you do is click share.
Okay.
So you can put it on your campaign's page or your personal page, so all of your supporters can watch this. I'm actually sharing it right now. So again, in the studio, you've never had the pleasure of being in the studio, I have like 4 or 5 computers and some sound effects. And at this point, I would be hitting a button that says applause. And applause will be playing right now. And well, I have to verbally tell you that because I don't have an applause button here. So.
Well, you could clap for me. Go ahead right now.
Yes. Just give me some manual claps.
That's what Bob does. That's all I got for.
That's what Dr. Bob does. He does the manual clap every time I forget to hit the button. Oh, shout out to William O'Shaughnessy of WVOX who's tuned in. Welcome to the show, William. Patrice Wallace Moore, my cousin Mark Bennett, White Plains Councilwoman Nadine Hunt Robinson, and Alex Harrison. So welcome to the show, Allison. First, before we get into anything, you candidates always talk about who they are as a candidate, what they've done. Who is Allison Fine, the person? Not the candidate, the person. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here on what is, and we'll get to it, a very difficult time as well. AJ, I grew up in Sleepy Hollow. I lived 2 blocks from where I grew up, right on the river. I raised 3 boys in Irvington. Westchester is deeply my home. I care very much what happens here, what happens to our people here. When I was 22, I came back from college and I was elected a trustee in Sleepy Hollow. I was the youngest elected official in New York State. And I was in charge of the committee that oversaw the police and fire departments. And from that experience, I was in that role for 3 years. I understand the tensions of running local police and fire departments, the benefits that they bring to our communities, and what we need to sort of uproot to be different in that regard. I have spent my entire career as a community organizer, as a leader in tech for good, focused on social justice. I have fought for fair housing in East Baltimore, for environmental justice in East St. Louis, for reproductive freedom in rural Georgia, and to reduce hate crimes and anti-Semitism here in Westchester and Rockland. So these issues are very, very personal for me. They run deep. I want to make sure I'm raising kids that understand what true justice is. And I want to be a great ally to other folks in their fights. And that takes a level of humility and listening that has been long learned in my career.
Now, interesting, unfortunate or interesting, however when you look at it, these coronavirus already changed things and
Yes.
changed the course of questions that I would ask in a traditional candidate interview. And
Yes.
then we have the national outrage
Yes.
over the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and many others before him. But he was that death was the catalyst that kicked off this, and actually not just nationally, internationally. You
Yes.
have all 50 states and I believe 20 countries
Yes.
protesting the name George. What happened to the man named George Floyd, a name that they had never heard of before because of what they saw on a video.
Yes.
So because of that, questions change a little bit. So one of the things that we at Black Westchester have been talking about, this is probably, I'm 54. So I was 2 when Martin Luther King got killed.
Yeah.
I really wasn't alive or was too young to really remember the protests of the 60s. What we're seeing now has to be the biggest outrage and protest of my life. But without elected officials passing police criminality laws, this will be just another big protest that
That's
turned into riots some places, some destruction some places.
Right.
Frustration was let out, noise was made, the news media, did what they did,
Right.
out all around the clock, filling their channels, and nothing is done.
That's right. That's right.
And the reason we talk Black Westchester, and my partner Damon is having a gathering at his house today, so he's not on, but he's the head of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. One of the things they did is they challenged elected officials to pass police criminality laws. And let me explain what I'm talking about exactly. The Eric Garner situation, the New York City Police Department banned the chokehold, but it wasn't against the law. So while he broke policies and procedures, he physically did not break a law and did not go to jail. And it took 6 years before they even fired him. No one is going to jail. The only person arrested in that situation who went to jail was the individual who shot the video, the young man who shot the video. So we need our elected officials to pass police criminality laws. One, to describe what a police crime is in law, and if a law enforcement officer violates his policies, procedures, and training, it should be against the law and he should go to jail. So if elected, what kind of things would you be trying to put into place as far as that's concerned?
So AJ, the pandemic and the protests are not separate activities. They are linked together. Pandemics are poverty multipliers, right? Mm-hmm. And what we saw immediately was that none of the money that came out from the federal government got to the people, right? The money mm-hmm. was immediately sucked up by the commercial banks and the corporations. If we wanted people to stay employed, we would have put the money out through payroll companies, right? You want businesses to stay afloat. You want people to have food on the table. You make mm-hmm. sure that their paychecks keep showing up. Right. We didn't do that. We immediately made millions and millions of people unemployed. And we were already at a level of income inequality that we haven't seen since 1968. It is not a coincidence that all of this is happening right now, right? People are rubbed raw by this level of inequality and by the lack of systemic change after each of the incidences you just mentioned. They happen, we get outraged. They happen, we get outraged. Here's why my work is different. Anybody running in a Democratic primary, AJ, is going to come on your show right now and say, yes, we need to demilitarize the police. We need to outlaw chokeholds. We need to, make sure the Justice Department has consent decrees put back in, which Jeff Sessions took out, so that the federal government can investigate local police departments. But what they don't understand, and I think about this as dandelions, what they don't understand is by having a laundry list of policies is like plucking the flower off the top of the dandelion and never digging in and getting to the roots.
Mm.
And the roots are, what do we fund? Where does the money go? And what are the values in our policies, right? And for years and years, beginning with the war on drugs in the 1990s, we have been turning American domestic police departments into military forces, right? Equipped with military equipment all over them and with military style tactics where the people in communities of color that they're policing have become the enemy, right? That's how that happens over the years as you look at what's being funded and then what culture it creates. And it's more than just pulling off the top of the dandelion. You got to dig into what exactly are the values we're trying to incorporate and then making sure the money follows that, right? And that's what you're not going to hear from other candidates because they haven't spent a career in deep social change movements the way that I have, right? This is more than this is more than a laundry list. This is a vision of creating a new economy where people really do have an opportunity to build wealth, build companies, create savings, and where we are shifting our money from militarizing the police to building community services, right? Mental health services, job training, food, right? One of the things that is so appalling, I think the most, just as a human being, the most appalling thing about the pandemic was that we as Americans expected food bank to start feeding millions and millions of people, and Washington never increased the money for the SNAP program for just that purpose, right? These are our values. And this is why you elect somebody, right? You want to see what are their values? What are they going to really fight for in this new era? We're going to keep coming back to this moment in time unless and until we really get into a different set of policies, a different set of values that are driving our national policy. And this is why I'm not taking any PAC money, AJ. I will not be beholden to corporations. And I think, like you would say, people matter more than politics, right?
Absolutely. Now, in the last year, we had, and people called for it. We got, and as I say, you always got to be careful what you call for because of situations like what we're going through. People called for criminal justice reform. As one of the reasons that came about, too many people sitting in jail because they couldn't bail, and et cetera, no discovery, But in demanding these things, the public made the politicians rush to put something together.
Yeah.
And what they did was necessary. Same way I think what Obama did with the Affordable Care was necessary, but it needs to be reformed. So the criminal justice reform needs to be reformed. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think? And I think there is a certain reform that kicks in July or something. It is part of it. Yeah.
So I think, again, we need to back up a step, right? Why have we created a school to prison pipeline? Mm-hmm. And I think we need to take a step back and look at public education in this country. Countries around the world that have strong democracies and big, robust middle classes have the best public education systems in the world. I was working on a project in Harlem a couple of years ago, AJ, and it was so heartbreaking to me. It was one big building. One half of the building was a regular New York City public school, no resources. The teachers had little carts they would take around to classes. The teachers were going on to Donors Choose to raise money just to get some fundamental supplies. Mm-hmm. Other half of the building was a charter school, right? That 1 out of every 1,000 kids won a lottery to get into. Fully funded, beautiful classrooms, computers everywhere. And I remember asking the children, this was a 3rd grade class, who were having lunch in the same room with different food on one side of the room from the other side of the room. I said, how does that make you feel? And this little boy said to me, I'm just used to the fact that they get more than I do. Same school building. How it was the most appalling level of planned inequality I have ever seen in my life, right? That New York City allowed that to happen. So we need to back up and make sure that we are fully funding public education for every single child in this country. Every child should have the equipment and the supplies and the teachers they need to learn. And that is someplace where the federal government could step in and help to make sure no teacher is going online to beg for supplies for a student. We need to make sure that kids are ready to not just have content thrown at them, but understand how to learn, how to become lifelong learners, how to become entrepreneurs. Not many people know that before this crisis, we were at a 30-year low point for business startups. New businesses are the engine for job growth in this country. 2/3 of new jobs come from business startups, and we haven't been able to do that. You can't build wealth if you can't start a business. And so these are just some of the fundamental pieces that we haven't focused on in a very long time. Then, of course, I want to make sure we're reducing sentences for nonviolent offenders. We're allowing people who have served their time to be able to vote, to re-enfranchise them as voters and full citizens, and providing job training upon their release so that they can also get jobs and have the skills they need for a new economy as well.
We have a question from the audience, Charles Stearns, who's a regular guest co-host with us. He has a show called Red Blue Talk. He asks, so would you support expansion of charter schools so the whole building can be a charter?
No, just the opposite. I think we should not have charter schools, which provide more resources for a very small percentage of kids. And in Westchester, we have very few charter schools. I think we need to invest in public schools and we need to make them great. We have plenty of people who want to teach in them. We just have a fundamentally very unequal way of funding public schools through property taxes, which ensure that wealthier communities have more resources for their schools, and we need to unblock those pieces. But fundamentally, there should be one public education system in this country that serves all students well.
Yeah, we kind of, it was crazy because in Yonkers, when all the kids had to go home and learn from school, nobody had
they didn't have the technology.
Computer. No, they didn't.
Right? You sent them home.
The Yonkers school system only gave out 1,000 iPads, and they have to return them. So if you break them, you're responsible for them.
Talk about the inequality, Lorraine. You sent the kids home without the technology for them to continue to learn, right? Then you said to parents, stay home, try to do your jobs, and become full-time childcare providers. Then, to make it even worse, when you begin to open up the economy, you're asking parents to go back to work when schools, camps, and a lot of daycare centers are closed. What in the world are they supposed to do with their kids? And this is what happens when you don't have enough people in the rooms focused on families and kids making decisions. I'll tell you though, AJ, this is really personal for me in terms of public education because my mother ran for school board here in Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown when I was in middle school because she was so upset with white flight. We had the first influx of families from Central America. And I was with her in living rooms and boardrooms for 10 years when she was president of school board here, fighting against just vile racist comments directed at her to fight for ESL and social services in the schools for every single kid. So we've been in this fight for a while.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
No, because I just want to say, speaking about the technology, I have a mother contacted me. They had one cell phone in the house. It's not enough for all the kids to do the homework, and the cell phone barely worked.
Yeah.
She called the Yonkers public school system. She begged them She begged them for a laptop. They said they didn't have any. What ended up happening was they called CPS on her because the kids were not doing homework.
That's exactly.
And that's where our friend Cynthia Turnquist Jones, AJ, came in and was able to get them 2 Kindles.
Right.
And Cynthia, ironically, she was one of the first co-hosts when we started the show. She was the first co-host,
yeah.
And she actually is running for school board in Mount Vernon right now, and that's not necessarily a plug. We just talk about.
That's right. That's right. But, yes. But the technology divide is so huge, and again, as I was saying, pandemics being poverty multipliers. The fact that so many low-income kids have now lost a half a year of school, maybe more, depending on what happens in the fall. I don't know how they catch up now that they're so far behind, right?
Now that was where I was going with my next question. So in a perfect world, we go back to school and everybody goes back to work, but we need to understand that we're not living in a perfect world. So there is a great chance with second wave coming that they talk about. And because of this protest, and I wrote a piece that you should read if you hadn't read, having to choose between social distancing and social justice. So people have gone out.
Yep.
And I've even heard stories where they're sending people that are affected by COVID into these crowds, like to affect people. Whatever way it is, there will be somewhat of an outbreak from these large gatherings, because there have been people who have gone there inconsiderate of the peaceful protesters and not have masks, and there are large groups together. So we have a second we have a break, outbreak, and then a second wave. We need to be looking at more of a new normal. There may be more of this needing to school from home, or
yes,
so the need for technology. We need to be furthering that to prepare for all of these things. I don't think that New York State, I don't think the country, but I don't think New York State is preparing for that.
No, I don't. Enough. Listen, we don't do a good job, AJ, of, we look straight down. We don't look up and out as a country. And we haven't had leadership that does that. As I mentioned to you before, most people, most politicians, most candidates that you talk to will give you a laundry list of policies. That's not vision. That's not about where we go from here. So if you want to talk about tech and education, the vision of what it could be that we make sure every single child has access to the technology they need. And as a country, we're creating curricula for them so that every child can learn at the pace and in the style that suits them best, as well as having the interactive and the community piece of this, right? So imagine a country where every child has equal access to the tools they need to learn and to a curriculum that suits them best, right? That's where we need to go.
Sound like a Martin Luther King dream that's turned into a nightmare that never came to fruition. That's what it sounds like to me.
What exactly is the 17th congressional district for those people that just tuned in right now?
So it's not on the Sound, so it's not Yonkers and Mount Vernon. It starts at it starts in Harrison, Portchester, White Plains, over to Dobbs, over to the river, up to Peekskill. And then, Lorraine, the kind of crazy part is it's all of Rockland County.
Wow.
And that's because of gerrymandering, because you all know Westchester and Rockland are really so very fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge to put
another thing.
One district.
Another thing, what happens after the census, I believe.
Yes,
districts get redrawn.
Well,
so,
New York State, because of an undercount, New York State's at risk of losing 2 congressional seats, which is bad. But then they are going to probably redraw the lines after 2020.
And basically, like the saying, history is written by the winner. District lines are drawn by the winner. So the importance of voting in this election, and you know what I'm saying, and putting your people in position so that they can be part of the redistricting, the drawing up the lines, that probably will be better for some of our communities, to bring in
Yes.
resources to some of our communities. So that's just another, people don't understand, a lot of people don't realize the importance of the vote. Like, and every year, every election, this is the most important election. Well, nationally down, this actually may be one of the most important elections of my life.
I mean, AJ, if you're not voting this year with that guy in the White House, I don't know when you're going to vote, because it's just so frightening. This, the level of both corruption and incompetence, putting the two of those things together in a pandemic has just been absolutely disastrous for the country. And we're going to have to rebuild a whole bunch of things.
I've been very critical of the governor. I'm not necessarily ever going to be on his Christmas card list because I've been so critical of him. But he has shown a certain level of leadership that we're missing at the highest level.
Yeah.
And I do respect him for that.
Yeah.
I do respect him for that. Oh boy. Lorraine, any more questions real quick? She said I never get a chance to ask questions.
No.
Okay. Gotta check with you because you're like, you don't ever let me ask questions.
We argue, yeah.
Yes. I get this all the time, and then I get it for the next 3 days. So I'm making sure she gets her question.
No, I'm not worried. I got the door open. A fly came in, and it's really bothered me. So you're gonna see a fly
okay.
all over.
So shout out to Damon K. Jones, my partner. We're celebrating our 60-year anniversary this year for the show and for the website. And shout out to Dr. Bob, Robert Basseville. He's working on some research right now, so he is not here.
What do you think about HUD housing?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So one huge problem is that the criteria used by HUD for how to define the poverty level hasn't been updated in 40 years. In addition, we live in a very expensive district. Yes. So it used to be, Lorraine, when in the 70s, when that last time that formula was updated, the idea was if you're spending more than a third of your income on housing, you plus had, low income, you would deserve relief. I can see you're flying.
You see, it's so annoying.
So,
and it's big.
It's big. Now the problem is so many costs in our lives have skyrocketed in a way nobody in 1975 would have ever imagined. We wouldn't have imagined healthcare costing so much. We wouldn't have imagined utilities costing so much. So we need to update the criteria for being, eligible for HUD housing, and we need to make many more, housing stock available for people. This is such a critical issue for Westchester, not having affordable housing. I know the county did a survey last year and said we're 11,000 units short on affordable housing. That was last year before the pandemic, right? And we know a lot of people haven't been able to afford their rent in the last 2 months and are laid off. So we have a housing crisis. And again, this has to be a fundamental value for people in Congress, is making sure that every American has access to decent housing as a fundamental right.
Well,
affordable housing is a fundamental right.
I think we need to define what affordable housing is, because I can't afford any of the things that they call affordable housing personally.
Well, that's just it.
Isn't there a difference between HUD housing and affordable housing? Isn't that two different entities?
It is. So HUD housing is Section 8 housing. Used to be apartment buildings. Now it's certificates that people can use in various places to help them pay for rent. That is, as AJ points out, different from having a housing stock in a community that most regular people can afford. And the skyrocketing cost of housing here in Westchester has made a gap between people who can afford to live here and people who can't just enormous. It really has.
I was watching Maxine Waters in a Zoom meeting yesterday. She was discussing housing, and she says that the formula of whatever it is for New York City, as far as rent is concerned, it trickled down to Westchester County, and what they put in Congress was they want to eliminate Westchester County from being part of that formula, so that they can work and try to get housing rents and stuff like that down.
So this is part of, whenever I talk to anybody else around the country, whether they're in DC or they're in Chicago or they're in California, and I'm sure you all have found this as well, everyone assumes Westchester is uniformly a very wealthy county, right?
And that's exactly what she said.
I grew up in
Because it's
Sleepy
one of the
Hollow.
wealthiest,
It is not
one of the wealthiest counties, of the country.
Yeah, go to Elmsford, go to Yonkers, go to Mount Vernon, right? We know that's not true. And that's where who represents us in Congress is so important, right? That we're fighting for every single citizen in our districts, not just the wealthiest people, and not just the corporations that are, shoving money into their political campaign funds, right?
So talking about the HUD situation, so I know under Astorino,
yes,
there was a situation where there was the government came in and needed to be a certain amount of HUD, and I think it was supposed to be a certain amount in every community, and Mr. Astorino said that they had met their need, but it didn't. What ended up happening, there was a lot of communities like Chappaqua and stuff that didn't have no HUD, and they built 3 more buildings in Mount Vernon. Yeah. And you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, so countywide, they met their need. They met their need where it was supposed to be in every community, a percentage. And I think there was a big issue with that whole thing with HUD under Astorino.
Well, and Yonkers for how many years on refusing to build affordable housing and integrated housing, mixed use housing as well. Mm-hmm. I think this is why it's so important that the person who succeeds, Nita Lowey, understands this district so deeply. And we have a couple of candidates who've not lived here as adults, never paid taxes here. I think it matters. I have a dear friend, Lisa Belkin, who wrote the seminal book, Show Me a Hero, about that fight in Yonkers to not have either integration or affordable housing. And we know this has gone on for years and years and years in Yonkers and in Mount Vernon and in White Plains and other communities. And we need people who are going to fight for affordable housing and to make sure that our communities are mixed, right? We don't want gated communities. I don't want my kids to just have people who look just like them in their schools. That is the beauty of public schools and of mixed communities.
I have a question from a listener. Said, what cities in the 17th district would accept affordable housing? Are the wealthy communities willing to accept building housing in those areas?
So this is a question of leadership, right? NIMBY, we know, has been a large factor in stopping affordable housing from being built in wealthier communities everywhere in the country. You need to get people to focus on the facts, right? The facts are when you have affordable housing mixed in with communities, it's a wonderful thing for those communities. And it brings a diversity to those communities that they wouldn't have otherwise. And AJ, this is a question of leadership. And this is a question of who has the ear of elected officials to make this happen.
And so now we're going to do more of a lightning round so I can get more questions in because, and there's no way, first, I always say there's no way to get to fully know a candidate in an hour. But, we try to do the best that we can. So before we do all of that, for people that are seeing you, we have a primary in 14 days, I believe, 14 days. It's come down to 7 candidates right now. For people that are hearing from you the first time and they're not really familiar with you, social media, website, how do they get in touch with you, find out more about you, donate, whatever?
Well, AJ, if I could just for a second tell you a little bit more about who I am, because your first question was like who I am as a person,
Person, yes.
and I
Well, I was
didn't
gonna
get
get
a
to that. I
chance
was
to tell
definitely
you.
gonna get to that next, but I just
Okay, all
want to give
right.
you a chance to get your website and stuff in before I forget and all that.
Well, sure. AllisonFineForCongress.com. I'm grateful for that. When the pandemic hit, AJ, I made a strategic decision that I was going to focus on the needs of the community and not fundraise as much. I wasn't going to spend my whole day dialing for dollars like other
I read
candidates
that.
do. Yeah, yeah. And really focus on making sure people had access to resources, making sure that people were safe and as well as they could be, and making sure that I was focused on the vision for moving us forward. And it was an opportunity to demonstrate a style of leadership I called shared leadership that I have been practicing for 15 years that focuses on being accessible and doing more listening than talking and focus on the needs of other people. And it's actually very, very in keeping with this moment in time because I've also spent many years learning how to be an ally in the fight for racial justice. And it has many of those same qualities to it. I need more humility. I need to make sure that I'm listening instead of speaking and asking more questions than stating answers.
I apologize to the audience. I know you keep seeing me. Well, I'm monitoring the comments, but two, I'm getting a lot of updates and stuff with the new Rochelle situation. I'm still working on that story. So I have various people on boots on the ground that's getting to me. So my phone keeps texting. So you spoke a little bit about my next question. Campaign finance reform.
Yes.
I know a lot of good candidates from library trustee level on up who were not able to compete.
Yes.
And because someone who may not have been as great a candidate was able to raise a lot of money and outspend them, grossly outspend them, and end up, almost buying the seat. Yeah. So how do you feel about campaign finance reform?
I have never felt more strongly about our need for it than I do right this second, having run this race, AJ. It is at the heart of our corrupt politics, how much money is allowed to shape these kinds of races, and how many people are being left out of the system as potential candidates, as you just mentioned, because so much of it relies on raising money. It's appalling.
Income equality.
So one of the major reasons why I'm running, I hope you'll let me just give me a second to unfold this. I grew up in Sleepy Hollow. As you all maybe remember, there was a General Motors plant in Sleepy Hollow here. Remember that?
Tarrytown.
In Tarrytown.
Yes, my dad worked there, but my grandfather, he's 35 years each. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Okay, so that plant had 3,000 jobs, many of those good paying union jobs, and a family could live on that income. In the 30 years since that plant closed, we went, AJ, from being diamond shaped as a society with a big, robust middle class to being shaped like an hourglass now with almost no middle class, and you can't get there and you can't stay there. That's what income inequality looks like in shape. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're at the greatest level of distance between top income, low income since 1968. When we look at moving forward from here, we've been hanging on to the end of the industrial age for years and years and years, and all the corrupt politics of that, and all the white guys staying in power because of that, and the fossil fuel companies. Now that we are so fundamentally broken, that's what the pandemic has done, broken us open. The opportunity is to move to the next economy. The next economy has to be based on green technology, and my background is in tech. I wrote the first book that had the phrase social media in it. I've written 3 books on the topic of online.
I was going to bring that up. You wrote 3 books about social media.
Yeah.
Is there a trick or a secret that we don't know regarding social media that you can tell us that could probably help us?
What do you want to do?
No, I'm just saying anything in particular that about social media that regular person might not know that can be very helpful. Nothing, right? It's basically all there.
Well, here's the thing, Lorraine. The problem with social media now is that the platform companies, Facebook, Twitter, whatever platform you're on,
Yeah.
have turned you into the product. They want your eyeballs. And the way to do that is to just keep showing you the same kind of content. So if you've clicked on, I'm just guessing, products for dogs, you're going to see lots and lots of products and conversations about
Yes.
puppy dogs, right?
Yeah.
However, here's the problem for society, Lorraine. If you've clicked on KKK and hatred, that's all you're going to see. And they have created ecosystems of hate that are now spilling from online to on land.
Got it.
Right? We need to hold those platforms accountable for not doing a better job of reducing hate online, of not telling us when they're not letting us see certain things. So AJ, you're on Facebook right now. In the top left-hand corner of your news feed, there's a little button that says you can see the most popular things or the most recent things. If you say, I want to see the most recent things, which gives you more opportunity to see different things, it doesn't stay there. It doesn't become the default setting. You have to keep saying that over and over again. They want you to see the most popular things, so you stay right there with the content that's being paid for, right? So that's one thing. In addition, the FBI isn't tracking the connection between online hate and on-land hate. And there is a connection, and we need to track that to be able to hold people who are hate mongers online responsible for what they're doing.
That's a great answer.
More recently, as far as politics is concerned, online is how the Russians were able to influence our last presidential election.
That's exactly. We've been attacked. We were attacked by the Russians online, and we did nothing about it.
They played on, and they've always done this, but they were very well played on bringing dividing people further.
Yeah.
So there were two major things they had on there. One was Blacktivists, which worked with Black Lives Matter, which actually planned a rally in Manhattan. And all the Black Lives Matter people jumped on it, and it was actually a rally, but somebody in Russia planned that. And then when I wrote some stories about the police, I got attacked by Blue Lives Matter, which was their second biggest one. So that was for okay, that's my alarm. So for the police, for those police that felt a certain way, that Blue Lives Matter. For the Black community who didn't trust the police and government, it was Blacktivists, and they were filling everybody, and we didn't know we were being influenced our thoughts by.
And you know where they started? They started to practice all of that misinformation, all of that chaos with the anti-vaxxers. That's how they got good at it.
Right.
How crazy is that? Lorraine, also,
so,
my most recent work has been on working with the Gates Foundation to make sure we're ready for automation, which we're not. And automation means the robots are coming. A lot of people are going to be unemployed. Wouldn't it be great to have somebody in Congress who actually understood where the technology is going and how to make sure that we know how to deal with it as a society?
Okay, so for a community like Mount Vernon, but I know Mount Vernon is not your district, but you have some communities like that similar. Yep. Everyone does not come out of high school, college ready.
Yes.
And what they don't have enough of are trades.
Yes.
Like they used to treat, we had auto shop and home ec, and we had a whole bunch of things when I was in school. Way back then. So they don't have these things now. They're just preparing kids to take tests and preparing them for tests. And our kids are not coming out ready for the workplace. And I think we failed them. We're talking about new technology, and now this pandemic is pushing us toward the new normal even quicker.
Yep. We're
not preparing our kids to be successful in this new world that we're facing.
Well, that's just it, right? 40% of kids are not going to higher ed if they graduate from high school. And as a society, we are not preparing people to be productive. And you know what we're not preparing people to do as well, AJ? To be entrepreneurial.
Well, right? Then that's what
you don't need to create Apple to be entrepreneurial. You could create a store downtown, you're an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to help people to understand how to build a business, how to get capital, how to find a mentor, right? Because we are going to have to be super entrepreneurial to get ourselves out of this economic mess.
It's going to be those new entrepreneurs that actually flourish, because again, my grandfather worked for General Motors for 35 years.
Yep.
He got my dad the job. He worked in Tarrytown most of that until they closed it, and then he went to Doraville plant in Georgia, and he did 35 years. That kind of job security does not exist in this generation.
Okay. Everybody's going to have to be entrepreneurial, even if it's putting some gigs together.
Right. And my ex-wife went through all the schools, got her master's, and when we lived in Georgia, for the first 5 to 6 years, first 10 years she lived there, she could not find a career in which she went to school for, and had to do all these other jobs. So we have people that got all these student loan and all this debt, and they can't find jobs in their field.
Well, this is it. It might be that you're making a craft and selling it online, and you are providing a service to people in your community, and you're helping to set up a shop. It might be that your career is all of those things put together. We're going to have to be agile. We're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to allow people to have access to capital, right? We need community banks, which we haven't had in a long time, to enable people to build livings that living wages.
Okay, I have 2 questions that are not campaign questions, and then I'm going to give you last words.
Mets, Giants. I said Mets and Giants.
Oh, okay. Hey, okay, I'm with you there. I have Yankee hats because of the style. I love the Yankee hats, but I like the Mets too. I like to break up the monotony a little bit. So if you were a superhero, who would you be and why?
Batman. You know why? Because Batman got his not superpowers from like being bitten by something or coming from another planet, but through his ingenuity.
No, you're one of the first females that gave me an answer and didn't just fall like to Wonder Woman. Like
I have 3 sons. We spend a lot of time talking about this.
It's funny you said Batman.
The next question. Okay. The next question is so if your house is on fire, you can only grab 3 things. What would they be?
Do 3 boys count as one thing?
Yeah.
I should. It should,
okay. AJ. 3 boys, photo albums that we never digitized, and I guess the cats.
Okay. See me, I got a go bag with everything in it, all my technology.
Oh, you're ready to go. You're really ready to go.
Yeah, I carry a go bag. I got a go bag. So running out of time. Last words. Anything I did not ask you that you definitely want to speak on platform? Why people should vote for you? Anything that you want people to know about you? So
I am the only person in this race who's been a leader locally. I built the network of elected women. Shanae Williams in Yonkers, Tanya Diaz in Yonkers, Tasha Diaz in Yonkers.
Tasha Diaz, that's my niece.
Okay, so Tasha's been a member of that, and a national leader in technology and in women's rights. And I'm the only person in this race who's not career government, career politician. And if we're going to make any changes in DC, we better have some different kind of leadership there.
That's a good question. Any last question from Lorraine?
No, I wanted to talk to her about Batman.
Okay, well, I want to. Well, Nancy's coming on any minute, so I didn't want to.
Okay, wait. I want to tell her about Batman. They call me Alfred.
Oh, they call
me Alfred because I stay home in the computer and tell Tasha do this and different people I help out. So they call me Alfred.
I love that. I want the utility belt with all the the widgets and gadgets on it. I would like an Alfred. You could be my Alfred, Lorraine. Once I
win. Next guest is here. Last words. Anything I didn't ask you?
Early voting starts next week. People should be getting their absentee ballots and starting to vote. This is a very important election. Please, please, please don't be satisfied with business as usual.
Absolutely. I thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I wish you well. If you win the primary, we'd like to have you back going towards the general election. And if you win the election, I hope that you continue to use us as an avenue to get the word out to your constituents.
I am just delighted to be here. I'm grateful for your time and attention. hope you both stay well and safe as your families do as well, and hope that we come together as a family, as a country in this really difficult moment. Stay well.
Absolutely. Okay.
right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Okay, she already clicked off. And our next guest is connecting their audio. Now, while she's doing that, Lorraine, talk about the event today, where you were, what was going on. You sent me a lot of pictures. Talk about that, and we're going to introduce our guest.
There she goes.
Hey, Nancy. Can you
Hey.
hear us?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. Can you hear me well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Lorraine, talk about the event today. And you called me from the. We were talking to you out at an event. What were you doing? What were you all doing?
Nancy, where were we? In Greenberg or White Plains? I think we walked
It's
Greenberg, White Plains, Scarsdale, and Hartsdale, right?
it's Hartsdale, the village of Hartsdale, I guess. And we went into White Plains, Scarsdale.
Yeah.
No, actually Scarsdale comes before that. It's really Hartsdale and White Plains.
Okay.
Right.
But it's the town is run by the Greenberg police.
Right. It's all Greenberg though. It's all.
Well, there was White Plains police. We did
Right.
have White Plains police that, we saw, but the
So-
village
so-
of
They followed us.
So I've talked to, unfortunately, this position has given me, I got to know Kenneth Chamberlain well. I got to know Romali Graham's family well. I actually got to meet and talk to Eric Garner's family. I was at the funeral and everything. Got to actually meet Amadou Diallo's family in 2014 because they were at the Eric Garner funeral. Unfortunately, I've met a lot of people that are in the club that you're in. Unfortunately, that is the club no one wants to be in, and I don't remember. So I know most people don't know your story because I don't know it. And I wanted to give you a chance to tell that story because, as I said to you earlier, what happened to George Floyd was egregious and terrible, and it's probably one of the worst things we've seen on camera. Not probably the worst thing that ever happened, but on camera. But we got to stop only marching for things that are 1,200 miles away and not uplifting and protesting the things that are going here in our own county. And I wanted to I wanted you to have you come on and tell your story.
Thank you. And I don't even know where to begin, or this is almost like last minute, but I do want to say, rest in peace, George Floyd. And I guess seeing his video really ignited something in me and family and friends who's been wanting to do something like this, but we wanted to keep it at peace and thinking, we'll get our justice, and, let's not make it, about Jonathan's life or Black lives. We want justice, and we wanted, this police brutality to be accounted for. Like these guys are going to continue doing what they keep doing and killing until they take some type of action. It's like, it's not even a slap in the wrist. It's not even a slap in the wrist. But I'll go on.
So tell it.
Okay, so this is going back in November of 2017. My son was exiting a store on Central Avenue. He exited halfway through the parking lot. He was chased by a group of people we now know are employees of that store. They chased him probably a quarter of a mile. They chased him because there was an alleged shoplifting incident. They didn't know who they had.
Who chased him? The police?
Employees from the store. Employees,
okay.
I'm sorry. Employees from the store. My son never ran from police department. My son never ran from them. He ran from a group of guys at this time that were chasing him because they didn't chase him out of the store. My son was out of the store. He was in a parking lot, and he turned, and there was 4 to 5 men running after him. My son ran, but they didn't know what he didn't know what was going on, or maybe he did know what was going on. I can't say because he's not here to tell his story.
Right.
But from what I have heard, he didn't know what was going on, kind of, in the sense like, why are these guys running after him? Because he wasn't stopped inside the store. And a witness had said they stopped a couple of people at the store prior to running after my son. So they didn't know who set this alarm off that took, that went off in the store.
Right.
So they stopped a couple of people, which tells you they didn't know who they were looking for or had no ID on somebody. But anyway, my son runs and runs and runs and makes it about a quarter of a mile down the road into a field. We call it Webb Field on Central Avenue, where he was out of breath. And
he had asthma, right?
He had asthma. So he was catching his breath, he's catching his breath. And from what I understand, these employees have flagged down the police that were en route to this store for a possible, larceny or what, They flagged them down, and as they flagged them down, I guess my son was nervous, and my son definitely was nervous, but my son did attempt to hide a drug that was on him, and that's the sad part. So as the cop pulls up, they're told that he just put something in his mouth. And the cop tackles him down to the ground and tells him to spit this item out. Apparently they never got to it because they were on his back, on the ground. Cop number 2 joins. And they're saying that he wasn't really resisting, but he couldn't get to his hands to try to cuff him. But they couldn't get to his hands because my son was laying on his arms because the 2 cops sitting on top of him. Come on, you're talking about maybe 400-500 pounds of weight, and you're trying to reach my son's arms. How are you going to get his arms to arrest him? But at this point, it wasn't even about an arrest. You should be worried about possibly a medical call. And why are you worried about cuffs when it's complicated? But, cop number 3 gets on the scene and within seconds, not even minutes, automatically tasered my son without warning. And I say without warning because the first officer actually got kind of hit by it. So he didn't give warning that it was going to happen. And then second, lift up his shirt and taser him directly skin to skin contact, where my son's body basically, as witnesses say, turned lifeless. His body turned lifeless. So they eventually prop him up, cuff him, and come to discover maybe there's a very weak pulse, faint pulse. If there was a pulse, I don't know. Cuff him. He sits up, propped up on an officer's leg for probably 6-7 minutes before they attempt to administer some type of aid. But I do know that they administered the drug Narcan. Not 1, not 2, possibly 3 or 4 times, to try to reverse any kind of effects of, obviously we know what Narcan is. And nothing worked. And that was the only medical care that they attempted to give him. I asked myself, and I've read up on it, that most of the time it works. People come to, walk away like nothing happened to them. So why didn't it work for Jonathan, who was given it immediately, not laying there, in some overdose state of mind or something? Why didn't it work for him?
But that's not what killed him.
Exactly. I mean, what are the chances of that small percentage that it didn't work for? But if you would have attempted some other medical care, you'd probably be here today. So it wasn't until EMTs, civilian EMTs, who had arrived on the scene and told one of the paramedic / police officers, or whatever his title is, we got to do something. This is not good. Until any kind of medical care kicked in. And that's probably 7 to 10 minutes later. They intubated him. And that's when this drugs was found in his mouth still. Never swallowed them. They never ingested. They didn't make it to his stomach. They were pulled out of his mouth with forceps, I guess. So they want to say, or people are saying, I don't know, I'm sorry, because it's just details that just came in right before this corona, January and February. It's been 2 years that we were on a waiting game. And just like I said, this information came to me January, February, and we were in our process, but then courts shut down when corona, the virus had hit. So the drugs were pulled out of his mouth, and some people think, right, they busted the bags, whatever, he overdosed. That's not the case. It's not the case, and I won't deny that there was drugs, and I won't deny that he could have been maybe high, could have been drugs in his system, but it's not those drugs that day. My son left the house at 5 p.m, and by 6 o'clock, he was fighting for his life. He drove from South Yonkers, 20-minute ride up to Central, went into a store, walked around, got in a vehicle, drove, ran. How is a person in an overdose state of mind managed to do these things? So, back in October, when the Attorney General had, come up with this conclusion that, the drugs, it hit right to the brain. And
how long before they told you, after the incident, how long did it take for the authorities to tell you your son was dead?
That night alone was a nightmare in itself, Lorraine. And I don't know how much time we have here. And at this point, I'm free to kind of say whatever I want to say. And there's like no type of gag order on this. But, I guess the people do need to know. I got it out of them. They didn't tell me. I told them, was my son alive? And I can go on that evening. And it was about 7:30 that evening. So keep in mind, it's about 6 o'clock, this incident's taking place, 6:15, 6:20. I know my son arrived at White Plains Hospital approximately about 6:25. And by 6:54, he was declared, he died. I got a phone call approximately 7:30 that evening that my son had been arrested from someone who heard. Wasn't there fully, but was there, but wasn't there to see it all. And I waited a little bit and made a couple of phone calls, and my son called, and we found out he's up in Greenberg. I left my house around 9 p.m. that evening to head up to Greenberg. I picked up my sister on the way and Jonathan's girlfriend. And we went up there. It's 9:25. I get to the precinct and I tell them who I am, and I believe my son is arrested, is here. I waited from 9:30 till about 10:45 to be seen. I went up to the window twice and asked what's going on.
They knew by that time that he was dead, right?
No. The whole time I am thinking my son is going through night court and I'm trying to go bail my son.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know anything yet. And eventually we get called in finally. And, the questions, the line of questioning was, is this your son? Shows me a picture. And the line of questioning was medical. Did your son have a medical condition? Did your son have asthma? Did your son have enlarged heart? Did your son smoke? Did your son use alcohol? Did your son use all of these questions, line of questioning? And I'm answering as truthful as I could possibly be. And, never in my mind was I, thinking
they was gathering information for their cover-up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And And yes, I did say my son has asthma, and he actually has an inhaler, carries an inhaler and stuff like that. But it got to the point, like, why are you asking me the questions? Like, what's going on? And my sister, who was with me, says, like, is Jonathan here? And they're like, no, he's not here. She's like, he's not here. Is he in Valhalla? We're thinking he got already booked and transported up to the county jail. And they're like, no, he's not here. And where was he? He's in the hospital. And he's in the, now I'm like, wait, he's in the hospital. My sister says, is he going to be okay? Is he okay? And they said, no. And I said to them, is my son alive? And they said, no. And this is how I found out.
Wow.
I don't know how I managed. I don't know how I think I did. I don't want to say lost conscious. Like, I passed out at some point, because I do remember being outside getting some air with paramedics over me, testing my blood pressure and whatever it was. And meantime, I have a husband at home, my son's at home. How do I tell them? They knew I was on my way up there. How do I tell them? And I called one of my brothers, and I just told them, I said, do me a favor, just go to my house and, get Freddie and tell him to come up here, tell him to come up here. What's going on? And I said, Jonathan had some problem. How do I tell my brother either? You're driving now 20 minutes and you don't want, reckless driving and just whatever. I said, just come up here, please. Jonathan had a situation and I need you to come up here. Just go to my house, pick up Freddie, bring him up. And, they eventually arrive, and I'm standing outside this ramp of Greenberg Police Department. And I'm trying to tell my husband to have a seat. There's chairs outside. They put chairs out for us, and a cop and a paramedic. And they're like, where's Jonathan? Where's Jonathan? And I was like, just have a seat. And what's going on? Like, now you see the nervousness. And I was like, Jonathan's not here. Jonathan's gone. And that was it. That was, I had no other way to just tell them that Jonathan is gone.
If you so obviously no officers have been charged, or was there anybody suspended? Was there any disciplinary action towards any police officers or anything of that nature?
I don't think charges and disciplinary. They were just probably put on desk duty, as they call it, or modified duty, up until the AG's determination. And to my understanding, they're back on the roads, and that was it.
Now, I think I overheard something, and please forgive me if I'm stepping out of bounds. I think I overheard you saying something about, in the AG's office, they said something about recommendations for the police. Yeah, talk to us about that.
They had made some recommendations in regards to the use of the taser, the notification that they had, the way they had notified family, some procedures that they had taken, and they had written that in their report. So I had said to them, I was like, but come on, like, so you're saying they're negligent, in other words, but negligence that caused the death, and there's nothing wrong, like, you don't see something wrong with this picture, just a report, a critical report, or whatever level report they called it. I said, so there's just a report and that's it? Like, they have to train again, or just didn't make sense. So I told them, I said, you're saying they're negligent, but nothing can happen to them? They were like, no. I said, okay. I'm a mother. If I was negligent,
who said
what was the cause?
This was the special they call them the special investigator on the case. It was from the AG's office, but they get assigned a person.
Right. Okay.
So it was him that told me. It was him, a female, some kind of like chap. It's like 3 people. I don't keep up with the names. You can't keep up with the names. So the AG's office, that's what. Okay. AG's office, basically, yes. And it was like, if I was neglected and I caused my child's death, I'd be in jail.
Absolutely.
And they're neglectful, and it caused the death, and there's no accountability.
Okay, now what was the medical examiner's cause of death? What did he say was the cause of death?
Okay, so Westchester County had said drug intoxication. That's what the cause said. But probably somewhere at 13, 14 weeks into this, because we still had no answers, we had chosen to go out of the county and we took this to New York City. We had a New York City chief medical examiner / pathologist look at and do his own report. And his report comes back to positional asphyxiation and cardiac arrest from the taser.
See, AJ, you see?
So where do you go from, like, it's one thing to say drugs, man. And you know what? We live in an age where, you know what, life ain't perfect and kids mess up. And not every kid, but you know, a lot of kids mess up. And I'm not going to deny that something could have been drugs in him, but don't blame this solely on drugs. Don't blame this solely on drugs and not their behavior. Okay. And they got to be held accountable for this. Because there was no need. My son never threatened them. My son never had a weapon. My son didn't have a knife. My son didn't fight with them. He didn't resist them. He was down on his stomach on the ground throughout the whole process. Actually, he was up on his knees, kind of like not on his knees, but like in a crouched position, just catching his breath when it first happened. But once the first officer arrived, came down and tackled him down. And actually then picked him up and told him to spit it out. And from what I'm reading, I'm thinking they're about to give him the like Heimlich maneuver to force this thing out. But they grab him instead and body slam him down to the ground. And that's where he remained throughout the whole time.
So even for everybody listening, even if he was shoplifting, just even if,
right,
the penalty for that is not death.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, just
right.
like I'm having a problem with these situations. I mean, Eric Garner was supposedly loose cigarettes. The penalty for that is not death.
Right.
George Floyd was either a fake check or a fake $20 bill. The penalty for that is not death. You know what I'm saying? And the police. My problem with all of these situations is I've seen the police in too many situations. The guy down south, the white guy who went to a black church with an automatic weapon and shot 9 people in that church, they were able to arrest him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There was a terrorist suspect in the city. They only caught him because he fell asleep in his car, and they were just tapping on the window to ask him to move. He shot at the cops through the window. They were able to arrest him. But in all these situations, in these unarmed black and brown individuals, they just go for it's like deadly force. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like and that's my problem with a lot of this whole thing. That's my problem. It's not saying that the person was right or wrong. Maybe he was guilty of shoplifting, and I'm not saying he was. But I'm just saying if he was, the penalty for that is not death.
Right. Right. Exactly. He should be in jail now if that's the case.
But they didn't find no stolen goods on him, AJ.
No, I'm just playing devil's advocate. If they said he did, if he did what they said he did, then they arrest. That's what I'm saying. They arrest armed white people, armed, that have shot at them. They arrest these guys, and unarmed black and brown people just end up dead.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's so. I did send an email to one of our frequent viewers, is the town supervisor of Greenburgh, and I've done a couple of stories where I had to get quotes from the Greenburgh police chief and stuff like that. And I will definitely be sending them this tape when I post it on the website. If you could speak to them, the town supervisor of Greenburgh, the police chief of the Greenburgh Police Department, what would you say to them? What do you want done?
Obviously, what I want done is, I wish I could have my son back.
Well, mine is
But
that somebody can bring that.
in the legal, the law part of it, you know what? You gotta get these dirty cops out. You gotta, and you know, and I know it doesn't come from the town, police departments itself. It comes from a union, and it comes from higher ups than just the town. But you know what? You gotta hold these cops accountable. They need to be fired. They need to lose pensions, and they think twice before they go ahead and use excessive force the next time around. You know, you start saying the good ones got to snitch out the bad ones. But you know what? That's why many of these cops are losing their lives, because they're holding on to information that, you know what, that's eating them alive and probably end up suicidal and everything else. And that's my theory. They're holding in too much. And you know what? These good cops probably want to speak up. And I do have law enforcement and family and many friends. I've had nothing but mad respect for them. But you know what? I do look at them a little bit different, because you know what? It hit home. It hit home. And I guess until it hits home, you don't see it that way. You just, you know, you see that it's wrong, but you just don't.
Doesn't affect you as much.
It doesn't affect you, right?
Yeah.
You know, and they need to hold them accountable. Minneapolis did the right thing instantly with firing these guys, because if you think we had chaos, what if they didn't fire? You just imagine what would be going on, you know, and they need to. You know what? You can't tell them, okay, well, you know, hand in your gun and sit at a desk and still get paid. Like, we're all going to go get problems and go sit at a desk and do modified duty to make my job easier. And you know, these officers had previous history, previous records, you know, what is that? Internal affairs reports and misconducts. They have stuff in their files. What does it take? How many people do they have to kill before they finally say, you know, we need to change? How many people do they need to kill? You have previous lawsuits. You have officers that have lawsuits that have filed lawsuits against one or maybe more of these officers. How much money does the city have to pay out before the city says, why do we have these officers still on?
You know, this is one of the cases we've been making this year, that one of the most important votes you can pass to vote for this year is the seat of the district attorney. The AG's office should not have had to come in. The district attorney's office should have taken care of that. And we need to keep there's been several situations. The district attorney office has failed us, the last two administrations, not just this one, in the Black and brown communities, especially when it comes to anything with police criminality. And that's why I said one of the most important votes we can cast is the vote for our district attorney. Because again, you should not have, this is the job of the district attorney, you should not have even had to reach out or to the AG, or the AG had to reach down and do that when you have, your district attorney should have been all on that. But we don't have a district attorney that's, you know, who takes care of stuff like that. So.
But there should be, because this is home.
You're muted, Lorraine. You're muted.
All right, Nancy, where are you with the case now?
We still have we still have a little bit more to go, and we were supposed to have some type of go in front of a judge this month actually, Supreme Court, but it's been postponed another 30 days because of the court's closed. So we're still there, you know. They tried to sit with us, tried to do mediations and all of that stuff, you know, but we're going to take this all the way. And yeah, it's a civil part, but I'm not prepared for immediate, like, it's not about sitting. I'm sitting with you guys to get your mindset, to get a feel of them, but this got to go to trial. This has got to go to trial.
You know,
so we still have a ways to go.
One of the things that they count on this is for families to end up settling, and one of the main reasons for that is because if you go to court and if you win, there's case law to be used in future cases. They can refer to this case, so they try to make sure that these cases don't go to court. And they try to get families to settle out. And unfortunately, a lot of these families don't have a lot of money, so they throw money at them and they eliminate case law, because case law never goes away. You know, if you've been in everything, you've seen any court show, whatever, they're referring back to a case, the case of such and such. You know what I'm saying? And what happens is we don't have any case law in these kind of cases because no one's won and the rest of them settle. You know, so and
Right.
yeah, they think money is, you know, they're expecting that money, they throw money at you and you will go away.
Right. And it's insulting because you know what? We all know there's no price on life. You know, we all know that.
Right.
And, you know, and I've heard people say, oh, go for the max, go for this. Listen, what's the max? What's the max? The max is my son, you know, but they don't care at the end of the day because it comes from the people and it comes from insurances. It comes, you know, it's not from their pocket, you know. So I'd rather give me 0 cents. Give me a day in court. Give me a day in court.
Give you justice, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the court is civil court, right? So that means you cannot take them to criminal court?
You know, I think depending on the outcome, you know, you can go after certain things and, you know, we'll get there, but it doesn't mean it's completely over, you know, based on the outcome of going to trial. You know, and that will prove, you know, expert witnesses talking and, you know, it has to be probably in the proven that, you know what, it wasn't just drugs, it was the misconduct, and then we can go that next route.
Gotcha.
So the most important thing is it didn't go to trial and they won because then they wouldn't be able to be tried again. So it hasn't gone to trial, right? The charges were okay. So that's the good thing because. Right. You know, that double jeopardy thing. If they were found not guilty of it, you can't go back and try them again. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, we haven't had that yet. You know, we haven't had that day yet.
Well, I know today there was that protest, and it was really heartwarming to see so many folks driving by in the car, beeping their horn with their fist up, you know, supporting Jonathan. It really was a beautiful, wonderful thing to see. You know, I hope you take comfort in the fact that, you know, so many of us love you. And even those people out there, they support you. Right. They support you.
Well,
when people support injustice, people are supporting injustices. Right. You know, who knew him, who didn't know him. Look, you know, I don't know if you recall that other cop from the other town over who said, "Who's this and what are we doing?" Wasn't even familiar with the story and didn't know. So how many people? And he's a cop. I mean,
I got him on tape. I recorded it. Yeah, I recorded him answering the questions. Yes.
Yeah. So he's a cop, and yet you tell me you don't know, and you're in the neighboring town.
He was lying.
How many people? Yeah. How many people don't know? How many people don't know and just think, you know what, whatever the news put up, and we know how News 12 is, and we know how these news stations just report what they want. Like I said, George Floyd was an awakening, and watching that video, and I watched, and I used to ask my attorneys, I'm like, what did my son say? Because they saw footage. I have yet to see footage, just be in mind. I wanted to know what my son said. I wanted to know his last words. And did he cry out for me? Did he ask for help? And, you know, and listening to this big grown man call for his mom.
His mom who passed.
Who's passed, right. I said, my 21-year-old son has had to have called for mom, you know, called for help. And yet no one there for him. So seeing that just hit hard, like hard in the sense, I saw George Floyd, but I also saw my son's circumstance because I didn't see it on the video. But that video told me what happened. They may not have been on my son's neck. They were on my son's back. You know, they were on my son's back.
Well, you know, that's what killed Floyd too. The fact that there was 2 officers on his back, and he couldn't get any air into his lungs. It couldn't expand either. His lungs couldn't expand. He couldn't breathe. Right.
No, I hear that. And like you said, when you first see that video, you don't think that's happening until you see that second video from the backside of, you know, the other side, and you're like, holy crap, there was 3 guys.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching, when he's like, my legs, my arms, my back, and like my stomach hurts, and I'm saying, wow, what's going on with him? You know, like, is his body shutting down and he was feeling this pain? But yet you never saw that these 2 officers are there. And now you say he was hurting because you had 200 plus pounds, you know, minimum on him.
I mean, even with Eric Garner, chokehold aside, the cop's full body weight was on him and he was on his stomach. You know what I'm saying? So that contributed to it as much as well as the actual physical chokehold. Yeah. The reason, you know, we Damon and I, we wanted to do, and unfortunately, you know, I've done so many of these, it's nothing to be proud of, but there's nothing like hearing the stories from the mother. You know, the news will do interviews and they'll show little clips and tell, and the clips in the narrative of the story that they're telling. But there's nothing like hearing the story come from the mother, like, and seeing the mother's pain and the whole thing, like, and that's why, you know, we do this, because, you know, I wanted you to be able to just tell your story. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm learning about. I heard the name before, but I actually never knew the story. As much stuff as I covered, I did not know.
She's been pretty silent. She's been pretty silent while she's been grieving and dealing with the situation, you know, with her attorneys. But I think this whole thing with Floyd gave her a new strength, to say, you know what, let's do this.
So what made y'all go out today? Is it the anniversary of his birthday or death? What made y'all go out today?
You know, it's not a particular day. You know, on every 29th of the month, we do go out to that field, whether it's just the immediate family or a group of us. We just go out and pray for him. But it wasn't. I wanted to hold off for the 29th, but, you know, the friends, his girlfriend, they were, you know, were set on, no, we need to do this now.
Yeah.
It's hot and it's heavy and we can't let people forget, you know. And it was no particular day. It turned out to be a beautiful day, thankfully, and it worked. You know, I was very nervous. Trust me, very nervous. I know we were going into that town. I'm here in Yonkers, and I attended one yesterday. It was bunch of like a couple of congregations here in Yonkers. It was a prayerful memorial vigil down in Getty Square, and I attended that. And you know, and I prepared myself in the sense of like, you'll be doing this tomorrow, and I didn't want something to go bad. We were in their town, and that's all it took for a dirty look, someone to say something, and, you know, them find a reason to just, you know, make this hard time even harder. So I was nervous about it, but I did say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it there, because that's where he took his last breath. And those are the cops that we want held accountable. Why do this in Yonkers? And not that we can't do it in Yonkers, but we're doing it there, on their grounds, you know, and many of the supporters wanted to take this all the way to town hall, but it's a Sunday, you know, like, you're not catching courts open. Even, you know, they wanted to go to the court building and the city hall over there, but I said, we're good, you know. We made our point for today, you know. We left from that area on Central Avenue, which is by that high school, Highview High School or something they call it. Went up all the way up to the county center, turned back around and came back down. Very, very nice. I mean, it wasn't thousands and hundreds of people, but it was enough.
You know, AJ, this Black police officer pulled up in the middle medium to the crowd, and he asked, hey, what's going on? Now, if you see a whole bunch of people protesting, one, he assumed, oh, this is Floyd, but he knew it wasn't about Floyd. He knew it was something else. So he, you know, they sent him to ask the questions. I got it all on tape. Because I didn't know what he was going to say, so I recorded it. But even the way they handled it, you know, it was sneaky. It was sneaky.
So go ahead.
You're right. That officer, that the only one that did say something to us, he was from White Plains, actually.
Yeah.
There was few Greenberg cops pulling up. Every few blocks we get up to,
They were
they'd be in the
hiding in
parking
the
lot, the
parking
next
lots.
shopping
Yeah.
center, the next side street, the next,
Yeah.
And as we moved up, they moved up with us. No one said nothing. Like I said, other than the one from White Plains, and again, he acted dumb. Like he didn't know nothing, and maybe he's brand new. I don't know, but come on, it's neighboring towns, and they got to know what's going on.
He didn't ask the name.
Right.
He didn't ask the name.
Right. Where'd this happen? Who is this? We said Greenberg, and I told them it happened 2-3 blocks away that way, down the road. And we did offer him, come out the car, park the car, come talk to us. And he didn't,
No, he said, no, I'm just telling you to stay off the road because it's dangerous. People can hit you with the car.
Oh yeah. I didn't know if I should take that as a threat, but yeah, he said people aren't watching because people will run you over, and I was like, wow,
that's exactly what he said. Yeah.
Yep. Wow. People will run you over. So,
and it's his job to make sure that don't happen.
Thank you.
They don't know.
He's distracting the traffic
here, AJ.
Right.
He distracted the traffic.
Wow. Again, if you could tell the town supervisor, Paul Finer, what you want him to have the police department do, or the police chief, what you want them to, what would you say to them? If I'm going to send this to them, so I want them.
And you want him to give you an answer, right, AJ?
Right. I'm saying if you want them to hear you, this is your opportunity. That's what I'm saying.
I tell you to get rid of your dirty cops. You get rid of the bad cops. You can't continue to allow what they're doing, and not just Jonathan's cases before mine, because I've read up, to continue to happen. Never said an apology. Instead of came out on TV and talked about a frivolous lawsuit. Where's some sort of an apology, something, but no
compassion.
No compassion. And you know what?
Okay, go ahead.
There's nothing. I don't think there's anything that he can do, because he doesn't care about me. Doesn't care about me and you or anybody else. But he needs to do something with these officers, and officers who have cost his town, his municipalities money. You need to let them go. Okay, immediately let them go, and let the criminal system, the justice system, handle them in that other part. You cannot keep these cops on force. Okay. And the other thing is that we talk about, repealing 50A with these body cams and putting this in, what good is having body cams also? And this is part of my problem also, when they go on and off throughout the incident. That body cam should be turned on and stay on until end of call, until end of whatever it is.
Shift,
yeah. The duty, yeah.
Yeah. Or, the end of, not even the shift, just the end of that call, at the end of whatever call it is, whether it's a 3-hour call or whether it's a 5-minute pullover, that body cam goes on and it stays on. Not cuts on and off like it did in ours. Not catches what it wants to catch. Not who had theirs on. Not what came out good and what didn't. What has sound and what doesn't. Again,
wait. So I'm clear. They were wearing body cams, and some of the video cuts on and off, so you can't see the entirety of what happened. And some of the audio was missing or something.
Yes, we have clips. We don't have a straight, full, like one person full video. That's useful. Anything, and I don't want to say useful, but like the 3 men on top.
Do you think that was actually faulty equipment, or that they edited clips to send you clips, like they omitted pieces of video?
I don't think everybody's equipment gets faulty in one night. You got one guy, maybe 2 guys, but I mean, from what I understand, there's quite a few, and probably been edited. I mean, edited.
I'm also, we have, like I said, we have a district attorney race. I'm also going to make sure that the current district attorney and the opponent who running against him see this. What would you like to say to them?
They need to stand for the people, because the people stand for them. You know, we are your voters. We are the ones that vote you in to help us and protect us. You know, sometimes we say, who votes for you? The people that you support don't even vote for you because they live out of county, out of wherever. And, you know, it's about voting and money and donations that come in. And it can't be. They need to stop accepting donations from these PBAs and from any kind of law enforcement agencies. And you can't accept money because, you know, then you're not hold like you owe me one. And that needs to stop, you know, which I have heard recently. A few people, you know, are going towards that route, and that should be, because you owe no favors. You owe me nothing. You gave me money, and what am I supposed to do for you? You know, what am I supposed to do for you? So, you know, whoever it is, Miss Mimi Roca, whether it's Anthony Scarpino, we need change. We need change in so many ways, and they should have their hands on something. I mean, from what I understand, my case didn't touch the district attorney's office at all because it goes to, you know, the AG's office. So I can't say, you know, they let me down, but because they didn't have any dealings with it, you know.
They should be the front line. They should be the first line of defense, though. They should be the first line of defense before the AG looks. It should be.
I think because, you know, they say when it's a death, it goes straight to them. If it was just some kind of misconduct or something, then it goes to, of course, the district attorney. But when it's a death, and especially without a weapon and no threat and all of that, you know, it goes straight to AG's office. You know,
and they did absolutely nothing with it, AJ. Nothing.
You know, nothing. And you know, it from 2017 till 2019, in the 2 years, that office has seen 3 different AGs. You know, it started off with the guy who's there, Schneiderman.
Right.
And then, you know, who had resigned or with all his stuff going on. And then Ms. Underwood,
yes, Barbara
who was
Underwood.
there, who wasn't making a decision under her belt, which was a temporary thing to make a decision like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Ms. Tish James, who was brought in 2019. And I said, you know, okay, we have someone solid. We're going to get results because we have someone who's finally appointed and someone in who can take this and view this case and view it fairly. You know, and in my heart of hearts says either you didn't view it fairly or a decision was made early on and it just sat on somebody's desk for 2 years and you had to break the news. So I don't know what it is with the Attorney General's office. Was a decision made from 2, 3, 4 months into this and it sat there for 2 years and she had to break it to us? Or did you not look into this at all? Like, and if you did look into it, what were you looking at? Because you obviously didn't give evidence any thought. Because how could you just say this is okay and blame this strictly on drugs and not everything else that they had done?
You know what? I did misspeak. You said it goes straight to them. Governor Cuomo passed this executive order that if there's a death in a police confrontation that leads to death, that the AG's office is the special prosecutor or something.
Yeah.
Not that the office needs that executive order, because if you go to the AG site, he is the chief law enforcement. Like, that's his job. Like, he can investigate any case, anybody. He can investigate the governor. He can investigate anybody in New York State. So he actually doesn't need that permission. But the governor made this executive order, so he's supposed to look at it. I know the first death that happened after that was the Mount Vernon, Raynette Turner, in custody, died in custody. That was the first Steineman was doing after the executive order. But anything I didn't ask you that you want to tell everybody? Anything that you want people to know that I haven't asked you?
Listen, I can go on. I can go on, but I guess it's just to best, give them some info. And I felt crazy support. I have mad love and support. And I know who my supporters are. And it's not about who's supporting, because you're not paying my bills. When I say support, I mean about love and prayers and, acknowledge the fact that this is a grieving mother. I post constantly on Facebook. We have an 11 memory page of Jonathan, and I get more love on that than I do on a family picture. You know what I mean? And that means a whole lot to me. And I'm thankful. Whoever comes out, whenever they can come out, whether it's a vigil, whether it's a day like today, can't hold nobody. Because you know what? People have plans. But when you push things aside and you say, I'm going to do this, it really says a lot. It says a lot. Like, I want to be there for her. Whether you know my story, you don't know my story. A lot of people finally learned my story today. Just understand, like, we raise our kids. Anyone listening in, we raise our kids to the best that we can. They hit a certain age where you don't know what happens. You don't know what they're doing, but you just try to be the best mother that you can be, or the best parent that you could be, and hope to raise them the best way. Do they make wrong decisions? Hell yeah. Okay? Hell yeah. And you know what? You hope that either they learn from these things and life changes better for them, but not to end up, being in the situation that Jonathan was put in. So when you think that you're untouchable from whatever way, whether it's street crime, whether it's police brutality, whether it's whatever it may be, it can hit you at any moment. So when you have kids, don't think that this can't happen to me. Because all it takes is one bad day or one bad decision, and your life will be turned upside down. Okay? We can only do so much with them, and even raising them well and doing the best that you can with them, anything can fall apart.
Well, he didn't do nothing wrong anyways.
No, honey. It's not even about doing nothing wrong. You know what? I don't live with a regret of saying, God, I should have. Why didn't I do this? I don't live with that regret. So I do have a little piece in my heart. I was the best mother I could possibly be. I probably could have been better, but we can all be better. But I was a good mother, and he was a great son. I have 3 sons, and he was a great son. Didn't give me a hard time. Wasn't one of those kids and that fuck him again, or what is he up to now, and what happened now? That wasn't it. And I work in the environment. I work in the school district, and I work with young adults. And you know what? And I can see, I used to talk to kids, young high school kids that I worked with, and just remember, you have a mom at home. Don't hurt her like this. When they were out there fighting and doing this, and come on, think of long term. Think of, who you're gonna hurt at the end of the day, and just trying to like guide these kids to better. And I would listen to these high school students as if they were my kid, because my kids were in high school at the time. And I would say, you know what? Have some compassion. You know what? They're kids. It's not about getting them suspended, getting them written up, getting them in trouble. It wasn't about that. It's help them, be there for them. And only because my kids are in high school, and I would hope that my kid turned to somebody be there to help them. Whether it was a ride home, whether it was, listen, I had some kids at one point, north side, south side of Yonkers, needed to get home. They couldn't get on the bus from the school building. I would hide them in my trunk and take them home, get them across Getty Square border to get them home to avoid being jumped, And
you were security, right? Security for the schools.
Security for the schools. And I was in one of the tougher high schools when I started back 10, plus years ago. And you know what? And years later, which I read on the post earlier that we were on, that's Miss Nancy, and I was still acknowledged as Miss Nancy. You respect these kids, you treat them with respect. They're not perfect. You could be from suburbia New York or wherever you live. We're kids, we're children. There are children. You do the best that you can with them, and you just hope that they turn into good adults. And they're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And that's why law enforcement is there, because there's no perfect in life. Because if life was perfect, we wouldn't need you. We'd be, policing ourselves out here because we'd be able to handle it. But yes, we need law enforcement, because there is true crime and true things happening. But come on, these are kids. You can't target these kids. You can't just think that they don't matter. Because at the end of the day, you know nothing about them. You knew nothing about my son. You knew nothing about him. You just saw him as alleged a shoplifter and a drug user. You knew nothing about him prior to November 29.
Lastly, I want to ask you, I'm sorry. Lastly, I want to ask you, one of the things, my partner Damon Jones is the head of Blacks Law Enforcement of America. He works in corrections. And he challenged the elected officials to all local, state, and federal and county to pass some police criminality laws. Because one of the things that, like the Eric Garner situation, the chokehold was banned by the NYPD, but that's not a New York State law. So while he violated policy, he did not break the law. That's why he's never been tried. He didn't go to jail or anything. So Damon is challenging people. Black Western, we've been challenging the elected officials to pass police criminality laws. When they break the law, they go to jail, because firing them is not good enough, because most people might not notice the cop in Cleveland who killed Tamir Rice, he got fired. You know what? He's working at another police department now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So firing is not even good enough. So what would you say to your elected officials on the need for laws when police violate the community like that, when they violate their oath, when they violate their policies and procedures? But in the situation that you're in, what would you say to all the elected officials that might watch this?
They need to be treated just like you and I. If you broke your ethics and your job descriptions and what you're supposed to do to protect and to serve, and you stepped out of line, and yet you weren't a threat, I get it. They go home every day and they're glad, they leave the house and hope to come home every day. But you know what? It's that you signed up to be a cop. You know that you take a risk every day, and we all take risks in most of our jobs, but not in law enforcement. You take a higher risk because you know the world we live in. But I read somewhere that they pass away, and yet they have this 21 gun salute, and they die with honors and this and that. But the kid that they kill gets built the narrative on him, the worst person in the world, and was useless and a piece of shit, and this, that, the other thing. So you're doing them a favor getting killed, because I don't want to say doing them a favor, but it's a plus for them. Yeah, it's a plus for them dying in the line of duty in a sense. Never want that, and I don't want to sound like that's what you want. It's not.
But you're not advocating the killing of police, but
no, so. Definitely not. Definitely
but
not.
The police officer, you would want to go with honors.
I just feel like your cop is wrong. Yes, lock him up. Yes, definitely. He goes and faces a judge, and he waits his trial and to see if he's found right, guilty or not guilty. That's what you need to do. And if you're not doing that, then you need to let him go from the job and let him know it's not happening. And you know what? And not be able to, like you said, in the other state, to be able to be hired. The record is tarnished. You're no longer allowed to be a police officer in the US of A. That's it. Why would somebody want to take somebody under their under their belt that has had history,
Well, that's what happens. All of these cases, Mount Vernon has a lot of cops that have been fired from other departments. It's just like, you get fired, you go to Mount Vernon. I don't know. We're hiring people that have been fired other places. We had a guy who got fired.
That's a requirement now.
Right. There was a guy who got fired from one of those departments a little further north for whatever, and got hired at Mount Vernon, and then was put in charge of IA, Internal Affairs. He got fired from another department for whatever he did. It was in charge of Internal Affairs here. So yeah, it's that our elected officials need to pass police criminality laws. When you violate your policy, procedures, and training, right, you should go to jail.
Right.
Right. If any of us, a lot of us are going to jail for way lesser stuff. There's people that are in Valhalla for stealing Jordans or an iPhone. You know what I'm saying? And they're taking, they're the only profession as actually given the authority to take a life when it's necessary. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that in any other profession, but there comes responsibility with that. When you violate the community that you're supposed to serve and protect, you should go to jail.
Right.
And it's going to take our elected officials to make these laws, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to have to be. And once you see one or two cops, case in point, Al Sharpton actually, and I very rarely quote Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton said today on MSNBC, if the cop in the Eric Garner case went to jail for choking the life out of Eric Garner, and there were laws in place, George Floyd probably wouldn't have died the way he died. He wouldn't have died. That wouldn't have happened to him.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, if they convicted, so if you see other cops going to jail, losing their pension, all of that stuff, no matter if it's in another city, you're gonna sit there and be like, hey, I might, you might think twice. And if you're the partner of someone who's doing that, you'll be like, hey, you ain't gonna get me jammed up. You'll stop that cop, which is your duty to intervene and what you're supposed to do. So those are policies that we need the elected officials to make these laws, so that these cops, it's against the law. It's against the law. You go to jail. I mean, that's it. Yeah. So, any last words? Anything I didn't ask you? Anything you want people to know?
Not really. I said a lot, and I just, I hope this gives some people a different outlook on what I've been going through and what most people go through, and just know that the fight's not over. The fight's not over, and to continue to support, to continue to keep, to be aware, and don't just, be so one-sided and so blind to injustices, just fight, vote, and just don't be so blind. Don't be so blind. Don't wait till it hits home to make a change.
Yeah, never give up. Never give up.
I meant to ask you, so, and you mentioned it too, for people who are watching this, they're learning about this case for the first time. They want to follow this case. You said there is a Facebook page set up. What is that page? So people can...
No, it's just...
It's a memory. It's a memory thing.
It's a memory
of Janet. Yeah.
Okay.
I just post, I post weekly. I post, we're at 131 weeks. This week is 132 weeks. I post my monthly. I post my visits to the cemetery. I post about Jonathan. I post memories. That's all I have, because, we can't make new posts. We can't do these things no more. So we celebrate birthdays and we post, and we celebrate graduations and we post. We include him. And, we can't post on Jonathan's page, but we're posting in his memory,
Right.
It was
so
part
the
of
the page is memory of Jonathan. What is
in loving memory of Jonathan Maldonado.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So anybody want to keep up on the case and find out what she's doing and show your support, go to that page, like that page.
I mean, it doesn't show much of the in regards to the legal part of this. It's just
not the
personal.
Case, no.
It's not the case. It's just it's the personal life, not in regards to the case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna. I tell you, like I tell everybody else, and Lorraine will tell you, we're gonna follow this to its conclusion. So, you need us. You just tell Lorraine. We're gonna, you got court dates, anything coming up, whatever. We're gonna follow this too, and we're gonna report on this, and we're gonna inform the people what's going on. We're gonna keep this alive so that they can't never just shove this under the carpet like it didn't exist. We're going to help keep this alive and keep his name alive, so they know they're gonna have to deal with this at some point. It's not gonna just go away. We're not gonna let it go away. So, you have us for that. If you need us,
I really appreciate it. Yeah. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to reach out, and I started watching, some episodes and stuff, and I did become friends with Ken Chamberlain, and he has gotten me involved in the WCPR, and I've attended a meeting, and then everything just happened at timing, winter storm, but I do follow him, and I'm happy for him, and I follow his fight. I don't walk his shoes; it's a different shoe, but I know that walk, and like you say, this is close to home. This is Westchester. This is we are probably one of the only two current ones that are going through this here, in Westchester. From gun violence. Of anybody that may have had in the past, I think cases are, have been dissolved, but too active.
Officer Christopher Ridley, the Mount Vernon police officer. Yeah, they put a statue of him outside, but nobody's going to jail for that. Nobody claims police. No, Westchester, was it Westchester County? Nobody's going to jail. Whoever was claims police were. Nobody's been convicted. Nobody's been taken to trial. Nothing on that case even. So Stan Ridley is still fighting that fight too with y'all. He's still fighting. He justice for his son.
We need to be able to reopen. There's got to be something that to reopen, to be able to appeal somewhere, to an appeal like, okay, this is what you say, AG's office. We need to take this higher up, and higher up here would be the governor, and after him it becomes, president, and that's out of the question. But we need to take it to someone higher up, or just revisit, same person, revisit and explain to us why you've come to your conclusion, why you think this and not that, and not just Jonathan's case, different circumstances. Jonathan's was a little complications of, like the people involved, and the allegations and the drugs and the tasering and different things, happening. But sit with us, talk to us, something. Why does it take to go to a trial to be able to voice and say what you have to say? There should be someone else we can go to if you're not happy with a decision that the AG's office takes. It's just one shot, yes and no, and walk away, and you're sitting there with your tail between your legs, and now what? Got no choice. You go civilly. You can't hurt them criminally. You go civilly. Why does it need to? If people probably got criminal charges, maybe you wouldn't have as much civil charges, because that's where you got it. That's the only place. That's the only thing you can do. So, hope and pray no one has to walk these shoes. I hope this never hits home to anybody, whether it's a son, whether it's any relation, no family member, to be killed in the hands of law enforcement, the ones that they're supposed to protect and serve you, and yet kill you, especially if you were never a threat to them. Never a threat to them, and
one of our listeners. I'm sorry. One of our listeners said legislation can be introduced whereby if a police officer is fired for any misconduct, state-issued state police certifications can be permanently revoked. If done correctly, this could conceivably follow a disgraced officer in lieu of that officer leaving the state seeking employment and law enforcement in another state. So that's just we need our we're fighting this fight, and we're going to stay on top of that too. We need our elected officials to pass legislation, from the municipalities to the county to the state, and then you got to work bottom up, because we're not going to get it from the top. So you got to work bottom up. You know what I mean? And that's what we need. So I want to thank you for taking the time, because I know it's not easy to relive this, because I'm actually asking you to relive exactly what happened to you, and open up and share it with the world. And that's not the easiest thing to do by any means of the imagination. So I want to thank you for taking the time, for trusting us to be where you told your story. And we're there for you. Whatever you need from us, let us know. And you can't get me, but you can always you got in touch with Lorraine. That's the same as getting in touch with me. So
right.
We wish you well. We're with you, and like I said, whatever we can do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. The love, the support from many, and just prayers for all, prayers for justice for all, not Jonathan, for all. It's hard. They want to see you fall. They want to see you break. They want to see you snap. And you know what? You stand tall and you do what you got to do. I will fight for him till my last breath, and maybe not that like I said, vocal, because I had hope and in the justice system, but yes, it failed me. It failed me, and we're here from this point forward. We were prepared to do this a couple of months ago, like I said, but then with the virus, when we started getting this, when the virus hit, it was like, all right, stay silent. This happens with George, and you know what? It just sparked the little flame that was sitting there, just ignited. Nice. So thank you, and we'll talk. I'll keep you guys posted. Anything new? I mean, we have court next month. There's something coming up next month, and keep you guys posted. Again, I don't talk about it and I don't post about it in the sense I've posted from day one, justice for him, justice for him. I don't give details because, people, some things you just don't.
We know. You don't have to. You don't have to explain that. Yeah, we know.
Mm-hmm. But if there's anything you do need to get out, you let us know. We'll help.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
We need us to keep a spotlight on you need us to keep a spotlight on. We're going to help keep a spotlight on this, so they don't shove this under the rug.
Thank you. I appreciate it. There's nothing more. I appreciate it. Guys, have a great night.
I love you, Nancy. I support you from day one. You, your whole family, and I'm not too far away. I'm always here.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. Love you guys. And we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Stay strong.
Right, AJ. Thank you for having me, AJ.
No problem. No problem.
All right. Take care.
All right. We're coming to the close of the show. I wanted to talk about a lot of other things that are going on. Unfortunately, this was important, and this was like last minute. Lorraine called me and told me that they were out there protesting and stuff. And I was like, put her on the phone if you can and see if she can come on. And we just made it happen like promptu, because I did plan on dealing with the death of Camille Flowers in New Rochelle. I've been getting a lot of texts throughout this whole thing, all day today and yesterday, talking about that. I'm still covering it. I don't know if all the facts are in, but we're still tracking that down.
That's the gentleman that got killed?
In New Rochelle, yes. Kamal Flowers. Yes. Okay. And again, say his name. We're gonna keep saying everybody's name. So, they other people put stuff like suspect and victim. Black Westchester says the name. You understand what I'm saying? The suspect and the victim had a name.
You have the name of the police officer? Do you have the name of the police officer?
No. Only the now. So the captain of the police, actually, it happened 10:59 Friday night, and the captain of the police reached out to me via email at 4:59 in the morning. And I'm sure it's to get their narrative, and we be in Black Westchester. If you want to talk to the Black people, and everything's going on with the George Floyd stuff, and you want to you get your narrative out, but we've been going back and forth. I just received the audio last night. I think they released it to the public today. It's like 15 seconds between the time the officer says he's got a gun and you hear the gunshot, and in the initial statement they said that the cop pulled out the taser, and now I'm hearing possibly it misfired or something, but I don't hear a taser noise in the video at all, in the audio at all. There was also supposed to be a video that was taken from the Humane Society building that the police have. They have not released yet. Supposedly it's a little grainy or something. They're going to try to clear it up. And, I'm giving them the benefit out that that's all they're doing, just clearing it up. So staying on top of that, there's still a lot of things that are, people on the street told us that the driver was shot in the foot, but he's still at large. They're still looking for him, according to Captain Cosmo Costa, who I've been speaking with. He's still at large. Whether, I don't know what happened. Some people in the street described him as emotionally disturbed. Vivian Spady said, please ask people to listen to the tape and stop judging, but why are they not talking about the driver being shot? Again, I'm not sure if the driver was actually shot yet, but we're the only one that mentioned that possibility. Nobody else has even mentioned that. We were also the first to release the name before they had their press conference as well too. So we're on it. I'm talking to the I think she is the god. I think she might be a godmother of the individual, and I have some other people trying to talk to the family. And shout out to Chris Eberhardt, young man from that works with LoHUD. He did a very good story on it, and he got to talk to the brother, and he got a heart. He covered it from a humane perspective, not just a journalist like the victim here, the suspect here,
He's a
whatever.
good guy.
So he also shout out to him. He also covered when Cupcake Cutie was going through all of that mess. He came down and covered that as well.
He just interviewed me last week.
Right. Okay. Right. See, right. And mentioned Black Westchester people before positive. So shout out to Chris Eberhard. Shout out to Rob. Oh, I forget your last name. Talking to Sound. I forgot your last name that quick. We're talking back and forth with him, and I'm talking to some other people that got boots on the ground. I talked to one of the guys who put together the peaceful rally that they had Friday before the shooting. I spoke with him back and forth a little bit today. So I'm working with the people. I'm working with the family, working to try to get all the details. It's not a lot to report, but the stories on Black Westchester, that story you should check out. I got another good story this week. When you have to choose between social distancing and social justice. When you see all these people out there, you don't forget that there's a pandemic. These people are risking their lives, not just from violence and retaliation from the police or from the outside people, the agitators trying to come in, but their very health. And if not their health, taking it back home to their families. You know what I'm saying? Just to be out there because they felt that this was that important across the nation, across the world, 50 states, 20 countries. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to, all the people that are protesting, I think Cuomo said, if you protest, get tested. I think that might be actually a good model. I want to, and Vivian said, yes, she is the godmother. That was his godmother I was speaking with. She said, it's a lot that's not being said because the car was supposed to be targeted since Wednesday, and they found it on Friday. Yeah, I'm hearing all of that. I'm getting into all of that. And
that's the godmother talking to you?
Yes.
Our condolences, ma'am. Our condolences.
Yes, and our condolences and prayers to the family, because even if he is guilty of everything they said he was guilty of, he still was a son. He still was a brother. He still, you know what I'm saying? There are family members that are mourning right now, and they lost their relative. You know what I'm saying? And I heard that he was like a gentle giant. A lot of what they said about George Floyd, he was a gentle giant. You know what I'm saying? He used to, he was cool with a lot of people. So we would like to. One of the things they do to victims is they criminalize them and dehumanize them, and that's one of the things here at Black Westchester. We try to humanize them again. We put the human aspect. We're talking about a person, and bottom line, even if he actually did have a gun, like they said, even if he pulled it out on the cops, his name is now the latest name on the long list of Black lives lost at the hand of the police, and that list just got a little bit longer with his death on Friday night. And it's here in Westchester. You know what I'm saying? Jonathan, the story we just heard, that's here in Westchester. Shout out to Kenneth Chamberlain. I have not done this on the radio. Kenneth Chamberlain, the family won their appeal. I want to congratulate them. In the last trial, and I was there, the judge threw out that the cops called him the N-word. The judge threw out the past practice and the history of the past complaints against the officers, threw all that stuff out. A judge just ruled all that stuff has to go back in, and he gets a new trial. So shout to him, and we want to help keep that name alive. And again, Christopher Ridley, and all the others. There's others that you don't hear about. Anthony, I forget his name. He died in Mount Vernon in 2014. There are various names of people who've been killed.
Within miles from each other. Within miles from each other.
Absolutely, and you know, while what happened to George Floyd was egregious, you know, like I saw more people in Westchester protest Mike Brown in Ferguson and Eric Garner in Staten Island than Kenneth Chamberlain in White Plains. And that's a damn shame. More people protested Trayvon Martin in Florida than Kenneth Chamberlain in White Plains. You know what I'm saying? So, and they had marches in White Plains. So, you know, we have to
look in our own backyard.
We have to keep these names alive. If nobody else is going to do it, Black Westchester and People Before Politics is going to keep these names alive. And we're going to continue to encourage everybody to say their names, and we're going to continue to keep their names alive and stand with them in their fight for justice. And that's what's up. And lastly, Vivian was saying the cop has citations against him, but they're not talking about that. And that is so true. And shout to County Legislator Damon Mayer, M-A-H, is Mayer or Meyer? I've always pronounced your name wrong. I apologize. But he has been there on the ground from day one with the situation in New Rochelle. County legislator. Yeah, I guess he's the county legislator over that area. That covers the area. But he's been, and Vivian told me that they're meeting with the family, and he's been meeting with the mayor and the police chief and the police commissioner, and he's doing what he can from his angle. So shout to him for being involved and taking the responsibility. He'll be out on Horton tomorrow at 12 noon. Horton is in the hood. Horton is over by the project. They call it Heritage Homes now. Horton is the hood. He will be out on Horton tomorrow at 12 noon. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not one of those politicians standing behind a desk throwing propaganda from a video camera. He's out there, boots on the ground. So I want to give him a shout out. But there's so many other things that we're covering. And, you know, of course, wanted to talk about George Floyd, because this week has been just an incredible 2 weeks. Today's day 12 or day 13, I believe, of the protest that is still going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they people, 50 states, 20 countries. They're saying George Floyd, and all these other countries. They're there marching for Black Lives Matter, for the killing of a Black man at the hands of the police. 20 countries around the world outside of this, and all 50 states, and they're out. And I want to shout. I just want to tell everybody, be safe. Remember, you know, your distancing, your mask and everything, your gloves, your washing the hands and all that. You know what I'm saying? You know, take them clothes off that you got on before you walk in your house, and you put them in the bag somewhere, and don't bring that stuff in your house, whatever you might have got out there. You know, just protect yourself while you're out there fighting for justice. Put your life on the line, protect yourself. Any last words, Lorraine? And then we're going to sign off.
No, that's it. I'm tired. It's been a long day.
All right. So with that said, you could be doing anything else right now, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This has been another COVID-19 special edition of the People Before Politics radio show, episode 264, approaching our 6-year anniversary. Until next week, we will have New York 17 congressional candidate David Buchwald, and Friday we will have legendary talk radio show host, Bob Lord. Damien was just on his show yesterday, and he will be on our show tomorrow, on Friday. And we have that coming up. And if you haven't seen it, watch all three editions of Policing the Black Community, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. How do you stop police criminality in the Black community? Powerful series, all-star panel of Blacks in law enforcement and criminal justice, lawyers. It's powerful. You have to watch it. Damon put these panels together. We're probably going to work on 4 soon. And I am going to do that New Rochelle. But now I was putting together a show for New Rochelle, like the Yonkers show. And now I guess it's even more prevalent that I do it now. So I'll be putting that together. So watch out for the shows. Continue to follow Black Westchester. The digital issue, the paper's coming out in the next couple of days. It's supposed to be on the 15th. It'll be a little early because of the election. Vote in the school board elections. Again, you have to the 16th to mail it in, but fill it out now. Mail it in now. Go to your Board of Education, drop it off. And until next week, peace.
Peace.